All right, everyone. Today is all about the levels of consciousness. And this is actually key because this is the starting point for when we go into things like memory and thoughts and language and those types of things. Because as we take in information, as we learn things, as we experience things, they go through these different levels. And really, what this means is there are things that you're aware of right now, there are things that you could be aware of right now. And there are things that you're not aware of right now, but you're still thinking about those things, even though you're not really thinking about it, but at the same time you are. So, you, me, everybody in general, there's more going on than what we realize as far as kind of what we're aware of. So, kind of keep that in mind. All this starts with the Freuds Iceberg. We'll come back to this idea of Freud's iceberg, but pretty much the basic idea is this: your mind is a lot like an iceberg. Your consciousness, your awareness is a lot like an iceberg. And the smallest part that pokes up above the water is your conscious mind, the thing that you are aware of. Below the water is much more of the ice. And there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things about you that you are not aware of. So, kind of what happens is with consciousness, it's pretty much your state of awareness. And you have different levels to this awareness. So, the part that's sticking up out of the water, that is the stuff that you are very, very aware of. The part of you that's at the bottom of the iceberg, it's still there, but you're not aware of it. So, starting at the very, very top, the part of the iceberg that's sticking up out of the water is what we would call your conscious level. And this is the information about yourself, information about your environment. You, right now, currently being, watching this video, watching this lecture, you are aware of that right now. You are aware of you're either watching this on a phone, you're watching it on a computer, you're in your room, you're driving down the road, you're doing something. This is what you are being aware of right now. You're aware that you're hungry. You're aware that you're not hungry. Just depends on kind of where you are. And, but yeah, so right now, this is your consciousness. The stuff, the information that you are aware of right now. Now, the next step is your non conscious level. These are the things that you're kind of aware of, but you don't have physical control over it. Like, for example, your heart rate. You know that your heart is beating, but you don't really have control over it. You have your blood pressure, you have your sense of balance, you have all of these parts to you that, again, you're aware of, but you don't necessarily have control over them. Then you have your preconscious. This is information about yourself or your environment that you're not thinking about, but you could. So, like for example, your favorite color, your favorite toy when you were young, your favorite movie, your favorite song. What color shirt is your mom wearing? What, is your dad wearing jeans or that kind of stuff? So, these are things that you're kind of aware of, but you don't necessarily think about it. But you could think about it if somebody brought it up. So this is actually in place to kind of help keep our thoughts from being crazy cluttered. So again, these are those things that we're aware of. Memories can often fall into this category. Like when you're like for the picture, good way to think about it. Simpsons are in Disneyland. Homer's getting beaten up by Mickey Mouse and Goofy. But all those memories are stored within your preconscious. So if I ask you what you did last night or what you did this morning, describe getting ready. All of that stuff would pull from your preconscious. Your subconscious, this is one step even deeper. This is your brain's hard drive. These are things like your habits, your procedures. Often your starting point for feelings and emotions come from here. So, like for example, if you're a nail biter, or if you're a stress eater, or if you're a somebody who gets upset easily, or you get depressed easily, or anything like that, this is where all those things start. All of your habits, good habits, bad habits, they're all stored here. Your procedures on how to do things. Like, for example, if I were to ask you, how do you walk? Seriously, really stop and think about it. How do you walk? What are the hundreds of different things that actually have to happen in order for you to take a step and not fall on your face? You don't really think about it because it's all stored in your subconscious. You don't have to think about it anymore because, up until this point, you've been walking for a while. And these are procedures. Walking is a habit. And then again, your starting point for your feelings and emotions. You watch a joke, or you watch a comedian say a joke on TV or something, and you laugh. Well, why was it funny? Well, because somewhere in your subconscious you learned that kind of joke is funny. It's one of the other reasons why you can see another kind of joke and be like, well, that's not funny. That's just offensive. Subconscious. You learn that, nope, that kind of joke isn't funny. And that's if you automatically react to it. Now what happens is your conscious mind can kind of self-censor what's going on in your subconscious level. But that's something for another day. Now what you have, and this is kind of the part of the iceberg that's so dark, deep, dark underwater that some people don't even see it. And some people even question whether it exists or not. But within the psychoanalysis school, you have what they call the unconscious. Now, for the most part, it is sort of accepted. But the big question is, well, what does this really look like? So it is kind of surrounded in debate as to what make it up. But some psychologists, again, do doubt if it's real. But this is first described by Freud and then built upon by Carl Jung. And in fact, when we actually talk about the story between these two guys, the story of Jung and Freud is a story of the student becoming the master. So, like, Carl Jung was Freud's protege, but what happened was he actually built off of Freud's ideas so much and had so much more insight into things that was actually one of the things that caused them to have a falling out. But here's kind of the idea of the unconscious. Repressed feelings and memories that are unacceptable to our conscious mind are stored here. So there are things that happen. Thoughts, memories, feelings, desires, things that we don't necessarily want the rest of society to know about. And maybe there's even things that we don't even want to know with ourselves. Like there's actually there's a phrase that the one person we actually lie to the most is ourself. So what happens is all of those unacceptable things, we don't like about ourselves, the unacceptable things we don't like about anything, are stored here. So, like, for example, maybe somebody doesn't like dogs or something, or they don't like cats. It could be because they don't like, maybe they were bitten as a small child, and that memory was so traumatic, they forgot that memory. But what happens is that memory is still there, is just pushed out of the conscious mind because of the trauma and the anxiety that surrounds that memory, but that memory is still there in the unconscious mind. And then this can manifest itself as somebody just walking down the road is like, yeah, I don't like dogs. Or they get a little nervous around dogs or something like that. Or, and this is something we'll definitely get to when we talk about defense mechanisms, a surgeon, like the world's best heart surgeon, maybe they have a desire to actually be a serial killer. Like they actually want to go off and murder people. But they know that that is unacceptable. So what happens is they take that desire to kill people and cut them up and play with their insides. They take that desire, suppress it into the unconscious. Now that desire is still there. They want to open up people and play with the insides. But instead of becoming, the next Jack the Ripper, they go off and become the next heart surgeon or brain surgeon or whatever kind of surgeon. Still driven by that same kind of unconscious level of, I really want to open you up and figure you out and play with your plentiful organs type deal. But that unacceptable feeling is repressed and expresses itself as a more socially acceptable way, and more social and more acceptable to the person, because not everybody really wants to believe that they're a serial killer in waiting. And then you have the collective unconscious, and this was put out by not Freud, Jung, and this is part of the unconscious mind that is derived from ancestral memory and experience, and common through all of mankind. Pretty much the idea is this: within our unconscious mind is, in essence, ancestral memories and experiences, thoughts, feelings, desires, those types of things. And what happens is there's a lot of symbolism involved into this. So there's not really a way that you can describe these with words, but you know that they're there. You look at the Joker and you know there's something not right with him. You look at Superman, and I'm talking the original comic Superman, I'm talking about this Superman down here. I'm not talking about Zack Snyder's Superman. But here's the thing though. There's reasons why this Zack Snyder Superman, quite frankly, nobody likes him. Because what happened was, when they made the movie, they made him in a way that went against the memory of not just you, but everybody that came before you, even people who are long dead. Zack Snyder's Superman was not really Superman. He was like emo Superman or something. And because he did not fit what Superman is supposed to be, Man of Steel didn't do so great. Batman v Superman was a flop. And let's just not talk about the Justice League movie. And the reason for it, the reason why those movies failed, was because the collective unconscious of everybody who saw that movie rejected it. And then, yes, there are dragons within the collective unconscious. We'll actually talk about these a little later when we talk about personality. But the short version is really this. Dragons have actually shown up in every culture. There were dragons in ancient Mesopotamia. The Aztecs had dragons. Europeans have dragons. The Chinese have dragons. Dragons have literally shown up in everything, in all cultures, throughout all of history. And they all look about the same. There's some variations, but they all have the basic form to them. They're big. They fly. They breathe fire. And often they have some kind of wings. And they have claws. And they're reptilian in nature. The only real exception to this, even though it's still kind of not really, the Aztec dragon was a little bit hairy, but it was still kind of reptilian in nature. Now, why? Well, some people think that the dragon is actually an amalgamation of all the things that could kill our ancient ancestors. And all these different things are kind of coalesce into this creature called the dragon. And then And then when you face the dragon, because every time when you face a dragon in all the stories, you face the dragon, you slay the dragon, there's a reward. And that's something we'll get to a little later. But again, all of these things kind of tie into this. Now, there's some psychologists, specifically those that straight up reject psychoanalysis, that say this isn't a thing. Me personally, I like to kind of think there is. And then again, you can kind of see this stuff play out. The best way to kind of see the collective unconscious play out, again, is seeing what movies are successful, what movies are not successful, what stories are successful, what stories are not successful. Because the ones that are successful all have a basic structure to them that you can point to, that you can use to point to the collective unconscious. So again, this is just a starting point. Starting point for, again, a lot of different things. One, this is the starting point to how we think, how we remember, where do our memories come from, because this is kind of laying the framework for that. At the same time, this is also things we'll actually touch on a little bit later, specifically when we do talk about the psychoanalysts, Jung and Freud and those types of people, because there's a lot of heavy implications as to what goes on as far as what is our consciousness, what is going on there. Because, and this is something that you could make the argument, it is because, let me try to find a way to phrase this right. You can actually explain the 20th century from this. And I'm talking about the fact that the 20th century was the bloodiest century on human record. Like, the body count throughout all of the 20th century was very, very high. You have all the deaths in World War One, all the deaths in World War Two, Mao's purges, Stalin's purges, Pol Pot's purges, everything that happened. You can actually point, and you can make the argument that the reason why it happened was because people in general rejected this. You could make that argument. And I'll just leave it there for now. And that's about all. Peace out.